Takeshi worked as a certified care worker in a hospital ward, including night shifts. He had previously worked night shifts at a geriatric health facility, and since the nurses and doctors at this hospital didn't issue orders recklessly, he thought, this is a good workplace. At his previous job, he was overworked for a low pay, so he had braced himself for the hard labor at this new job with a higher salary. However, the hospital valued new employees like Takeshi. He was happy to have found a good workplace and worked diligently. One night during a shift, the nurse call button rang frequently. In the long-term care ward where Takeshi worked, one nurse and one certified care worker covered about 40 patients during night shifts. Most of the patients were elderly. Diaper changes, guiding patients to the restroom, nighttime wandering, and changes in their condition overlapped, causing even the usually gentle nurse to become irritable. Naturally, Takeshi was also frustrated by the incessant ringing of the nurse call button. The calls were almost never urgent. I can't sleep. Can I have a sleeping pill? I want to go home. Call my family. What time is it? Most calls were about wanting to talk to someone or feeling lonely. That night, everyone was annoyed. Among them, there was one patient who frequently pressed the nurse call button, making everyone exasperated. Let's have Mr. Kimura stay in the office, the nurse instructed Takeshi. Mr. Kimura had been wandering the halls despite his unsteady gait and repeatedly pressing the call button. Following the nurse's instructions, Takeshi put Mr. Kimura in a wheelchair and headed to the office. On the way, he found another elderly person wandering. Frustrated, Takeshi grabbed their hand and asked, "If you can't sleep, would you like to stay in the office too?" The elderly person nodded silently and followed Takeshi. When Takeshi returned to the office, the nurse was not there. Seeing the nurse call light flashing, it seemed she had gone to check on a room. "Mr. Kimura, please stay here for a while," Takeshi said to Mr. Kimura, and to the other elderly person he said, "Please sit here," offering a chair. As Takeshi began to take notes, the nurse call rang again. Suppressing the urge to click his tongue, he told the two elderly people not to move and hurried to the room where the call came from to check the situation. After calming the elderly person in the room, he returned to the office to find that Mr. Kimura had wheeled himself out of the office and into the hallway. "Hey," he called after Mr. Kimura. "Yes," someone else called. Takeshi turned around, his tone unintentionally harsh. It was the elderly person who was supposed to be sitting in the office. Why can't they stay put, he thought, suppressing his frustration. He called the person's name, intending to get them back to the office. Then he realized, who is this? Even though he had only been working there for a few months, he had memorized the patients' faces and names. But no matter how much he looked at this elderly person's face, which was dimly lit by the hallway lights, he couldn't remember. Their name, medical history, condition, family, nothing came to mind. Who is this? Yes, the elderly person said in a troubled voice, reaching out to Takeshi. It seemed like they were trying to grab him. He wanted to run, but his body froze. My dear son, I'm lonely. Why won't you come to see me? The elderly person said. At that moment, the nurse call rang from the office. Takeshi's shoulders shook, the tremor spreading through his body, and he began to move. He shook off the hand reaching for him and shouted, "Sorry, the nurse call is ringing, so I'll listen to you later." He grabbed the handles of Mr. Kimura's wheelchair and hurried back to the office, pushing him inside. Takeshi then peeked into the dark hallway. The elderly person was no longer there. Later, when the nurse returned to the office, Takeshi told her what had happened. She shrugged slightly and said, "That person appears often. He had one son, but the son never came to visit. About 3 years ago, he passed away wanting to see his son. So, it seems that when a male caregiver comes, he thinks it's his son and appears. I want to help him somehow, but the living take priority. But please don't quit. We're short-staffed." Takeshi looked at his arm where the elderly person had grabbed him. There were distinct, dark red marks left by the elderly person's fingers.